Hey guys, this is Arvind again. Today we will be focusing about uh, what are the factors you should consider when you pick the right cricket bat for your style of play. Traditionally, the number of grains and weight has been the two most important factors which customers think about when they buy a bat. But there are a lot more aspects which goes into making a bat. It's important to know the full picture so that you can pick a bat which is good for your style of play. So let's discuss in detail about what those factors are and how to pick the right bat for your style of play. The first factor is the quality of the willow. There are two most commonly known willows, Kashmir willow and English willow. There is a common misunderstanding that tennis ball players should always use Kashmir willow, and there has been confusion around should I invest in a good English willow bat for just hard tennis ball? Let's talk about it. So I have played hard tennis ball cricket and leather ball cricket in India and in US. In India, the kind of tennis balls which we use are very light compared to what we use in US. So yes, Kashmir willow works better. It works as same as the English willow when you are playing in India. But when you come to US, the conditions here are very moist. So sometimes the ball gets wet, it gets heavy. The Kashmir willow just doesn't cope up with the heaviness of the ball. So based on my experience of playing more than 6 years hard tennis ball cricket every week, I always would pick an English willow because it is important to invest in a good bat. So my suggestion would be to pick an English willow. Having said that, there are different grades, grade 6, grade 5, grade 1, player's grade. It totally depends on your level of comfort as to how much you are willing to invest. Obviously, the higher the grade, the better the bat will be. So if you invest in a good bat and take care of the bat really well, it will serve you well in the future when you play some important knocks. It is very important to understand what type of a batsman you are. Are you a front foot batsman? Are you a back foot batsman? Again, within the category of front foot players, there are two kinds. Someone who likes to go on the front foot and drive the ball really hard down the ground, and someone who likes to go on the front foot and loft the balls. Classic example would be Virat Kohli and Cheteshwar Pujara. They like to go on the front foot, maneuver the ball around. Even their full-bladed shots are actually in the ground. The other category of front foot players like David Warner and Rohit Sharma, who likes to play on front foot, but at the same time they are okay to play lofted shots. They have confidence in their ability to clear the boundaries and clear the infield. So they are the other kind of front foot players where they like to go on front foot and play lofted shots. It is very important to know this difference because the profile of the bat which you pick will depend on what type of a player you primarily are. Again, this doesn't mean that certain type of bats can suit only certain type of players. It's just the preference. If you understand your game, you can pick a bat which works for you, and you know it will naturally fit into you, and you can play all kinds of shots with the bat. Now let's talk about back foot players. So back foot players are guys who want the ball to come to the bat. They don't go for the ball. They wait for the ball to come to them, and use the pace of the bowler to play a square cut or a pull or a hook and all those kind of shots. Classic example would be Mahendra Singh Dhoni. Even his cover drives are not on the front foot leaning into the shot. He typically likes to stay within his zone, put the bat up through the line of the ball, and play the cover drive. It's very important to know these differences because the variety of factors which goes into making a good bat totally depends on what kind of a player you are. And then there's the category of hitters who likes to go hard at the ball no matter what. So yes, for them it is very important to have a lightweight bat which has a full profile and thick edges, so that you can swing the bat really well. Even if you mishit, the mishits goes over the infield or sometimes over the boundary. It's very important to have a full profile bat and thick edges so that the edges also fly over the infield. So that's important. That's the importance of knowing what kind of a player you are. So the next aspect which we will discuss is the balance of the bat. It is very important to make sure that the bat feels like it's good for you. Just compare it to how you test drive a car. Some people like BMWs, some people like Audis, some people like Hyundais, Hondas. It's all about the feel you get when you drive the car. If you're a guy who likes to hit the accelerator hard, feel the road, BMWs are good. If you're a person who likes the car to be really quiet, Mercedes are good, for example. Likewise, it's important to understand the difference which every brand offers in terms of balance so that you can pick the right bat. More often than not, the common mistake which people do is think when they buy a bat, like let's say Virat Kohli Grand Edition or GM Player Edition bats, they think they can actually play as well as Ian Bell or Virat Kohli. Like I said, it's important to understand your style of play, and because your style of play is unique, the balance of the bat should feel compatible with your style of play. So one way to test the balance of the bat is to take a bat, knock it in the ground, and then just feel it. When you do this lift test, you would feel the bat to be effortless in your hand. It should feel a part of your shots. It should feel a part of your body when you keep doing this. And then try playing a front foot drive, try playing a cut shot, try playing a pull shot. When you play all these shots, none of the shots should feel like you are out of place with the bat, because the bat is an extension of your body. Your body is the one which makes the decisions to play the right shot. The bat should execute the shots. So it's very important to have the coordination between the balance of the bat and your body movements. Now let's talk about the bat weight. When you buy a product online, it's extremely hard to understand the weight of the product because 2.7 to 2.7 lbs are different weight measurements. So it's very important to understand, if possible, the weight in grams so that you can compare and feel the weight of the bat. There are a couple of tests which I always use to pick the right bat. Again, if you have a bat which weighs closer to the bat you want, you can just pick a used bat and also do this test to figure out if that's the right weight for you. So the first test I do is I'm going to use a couple of bats to demonstrate the kind of tests which I do. So I have here a plain bat, no brand associated with it. So the first test which I do is in your normal stance, hold your bat with your left hand like this. You should be able to extend your bat and not feel strain in this part of your body. If you feel a lot of strain after 3 seconds, it is heavy for you. You should be able to easily hold this bat with no discomfort. So that's test number 1. Test number 2, so that's if you're a right-handed batsman, that's your upper hand. Now let's talk about the bottom hand test. So like how you did for the left hand, just take your bat and just do your bat like this. Again, you should not be feeling any discomfort here after 2 or 3 seconds. Yes, after 5 seconds, all bats will make you feel a bit of discomfort here because the weight of the bat pulls you down, and you obviously will feel that. But these are the two kind of important tests to understand what's the right weight for you. And again, when it comes to the balance of the bat, you can do this test again. If you do this, and even within the first 2 or 3 seconds, if the bat drops like this, it means the bat is too bottom heavy. So that is, you can pick that bat if you like a bat which is very bottom heavy. So these are the kind of things which you should consider when picking the right bat weight. Now let's talk about the sweet spot. There are 3 types of profiles traditionally for a cricket bat. One is the middle sweet spot profile, where the sweet spot of the bat is actually the middle of the bat. The second is the low mid sweet spot, and the third is a full profile, which is more common these days with the newer bats which come in the industry. I'm going to take a couple of bats and explain what the sweet spots mean. So this is an SG bat. So if you look here, typically the middle sweet spot will be here. So this is middle sweet spot. A low middle would probably be around here. Most of the subcontinent bats, SS, SG, even to a certain extent BDMs and all those bats will have a low middle sweet spot. Whereas most of the UK brands, GM, Kookaburra, even Spartan to a certain extent because they're made in Australia, will have a middle sweet spot. It's important to know the difference because if you play in a pitch or a track which bounces a lot, you need a bat which has a middle sweet spot because more often than not the ball will keep rising and you need to be able to tackle the bounce. That's why if you see Australian players and UK players, that's why all the bats which are made there has a middle sweet spot. And if you play in a pitch which is very uneven and the bounce is pretty tricky to handle, the ball spins a lot, then a low middle sweet spot is pretty good. Because more often than not what happens is when you go to the pitch of the ball will not rise as much as it does in a high bouncing wicket. So when you play your shots, it will more often than not meet the spot of the bat. Even when you play drives or attacking shots, that's what happens. That's why most of the subcontinent bats are low middle. So you have to understand what kind of grounds you're playing. Traditionally people play in matting wickets or tracks, school grounds in US where it's just sand, like how we played in India, but except the sand is pretty tricky because the bounce is very uneven. So for people who are playing in matting wickets, my suggestion would be to have a middle because the bounce will be true, you can play through the shots. And for people who are playing in more often than not in sandy wickets where the ball turns a lot, stops a lot, and funny things start to happen, it's important to have a lightweight bat and a low middle bat so that you can react to the ball pretty quickly and place the ball wherever you want. So those are very important factors to consider when you pick the right sweet spot. Now let's talk about the full profile. So one of the examples of the full profile which I have is probably, again I'll pick the unbranded bat which I have. If you look at it, right, it just starts from here and keeps going until the end. Some of the bats have very thin toes until here. So what happens with those bats are the sweet spot is distributed only until here. With a full profile, the sweet spot is distributed across the bat. So typically hard tennis ball, when you play in uneven surfaces, full profile is the best profile because no matter how much the bounce varies, when you meet the ball in the middle of the bat, either here or here or here, the ball will respond truly. Obviously, the response will be better if you hit the middlemost part of the bat. But again, with a full profile, the advantage is even when you play a shot over here, like for example, reverse sweep. When you play a reverse sweep, more often than not, you'll hit the ball here. When you play a sweep, more often than not, you'll probably hit the ball here. So even when you play unorthodox shots, it's very important to have a full profile so that the ball responds pretty well, no matter which part of the bat the ball bounces on. Some of the examples of full profile bats are ABD bats, and the MRF ABD light bat, for example, and the Willow bats. You can also get a custom made full profile like this bat if you find the right person to make them. So yeah, so it's important to understand the difference between the sweet spots. The next aspect which we will discuss is concaving. It's what's called concaving. I'm going to take a couple of bats and show you what I mean. So typically, if you compare these two bats, you can see the middlemost part of the bat is called spine. That's the line, this line is called spine. And if you look at the both bats, you can clearly see the difference. The one on my left, the Chevron bat, there is no dip in profile here. It just starts from the spine, pretty even across the bat. Whereas if you look at the SG, there is a dip. So whenever you see a dip from the spine of the bat, like here, it is what we call a concaved bat. When there is no dip, it's called no concaving. So when you have no concaving, what happens is the power distribution is across the bat. With this bat, because there is a dip, the power distribution is maximum when you hit the middle part of the bat through this line. So that's the difference. So for people who more often than not middle the ball, bats with no concaving, would work good, but bats with concaving will work really, really well, because you more often than not hit the bat in the middle. So it's better to have a thicker spine with concaving so that the power distribution happens to be in the middle. However, if you are a guy who likes to have some margin of error when you play your shots, it's always better to get a bat with no concaving. So for people who play in hard tennis ball leagues where the bounce is variable and you have to adjust to the shots, I would always recommend buying a bat which has no concaving. It's important to understand this, because when you buy online, if you do not see the real picture of the bat, if you just trust the bat based on the brand, you might actually get a bat with concaving and the ball just wouldn't go if you don't hit the middle of the bat. So it's a very common mistake which a lot of people use when they buy the bats, a mistake which I have done in the past too. I have learned from the mistakes, and that's why I'm sharing these kind of learnings so that you won't make the same mistake. The next aspect which we will discuss is handles and grips. There are typically 3 commonly used grips in the market: Octopus grip, Chevron grip, and a ribbed or spiral grip. So I'll show you what these grips are. Let me take a couple of bats. So this is more like kind of like a Octopus grip. Typically SG bats come with Octopus grips, and these are also Octopus, but you have, like, grip holders here to make the bat feel more comfortable when you grip the bat. And these are spiral or ribbed grips. It's pretty thick. The thickness of the layers are very, very prominent, so that the bat doesn't slip when you play a shot. So when you hold the bat like this and when you play a shot, if you have a grip like this, the advantage is it just doesn't go out of the bat because of the thickness of the layers in between. When you play leather ball, any kind of a grip is good. Even people use double grips to make sure the balance is right. That's great, because you have batting gloves which will take care of most of the grip problems which you have. However, when you play hard tennis balls, people more often than not do not wear batting gloves. And if you don't wear batting gloves and play with a bat with the Chevron grip, which is like this, what happens is when you play your shots, when you rotate your wrists, the bat rotates more than what you want it to rotate. So you will have good control for most of the shots, but there will be shots where you will not have control over the bat. You would intend to play a square drive, the bat would turn in your hand and you would get caught at slip or gully because the bat turned in your hand. So those kind of things happen when you have a grip which makes you slip out of the hand. So my recommendation would always be to use a ribbed grip. Even if you use 2 grips, put a thin grip inside and then put a ribbed grip outside if you are not wearing any batting gloves, because this will give you a complete control over the shots and it just reduces the error basically. There will be shots where you will probably miss hit. It happens to every batsman, but it just reduces the probability of happening. So that's ribbed grip, which I recommend, and obviously Octopus and Chevron grips are also pretty good, but this is my recommendation. Now let's talk about handles. So I'll take the SG bat again. So this is a thin handle. If you look at this compared with, let's take a CA bat, you can clearly see the thickness of the handle is pretty big when it's a CA bat, and the thickness of the handle in SG bats are not so big. So it's important to know the difference in these handles, because if you're a guy who's very thin, you would probably want to have a bat which has a thinner handle. And if you're also a batsman who likes to play a lot of flick shots, play a lot of square drives, it's important to have a thinner grip so that you can easily rotate the bat in your hand with your wrists. With thicker bats, it's not that easy to rotate the bats when you play flicks and square drives. So that's why when you see people who play with CA bats a lot, you would not see them flick a lot. Shoaib Malik and a lot of other players who use CA likes to play straight batted shots, likes to play aggressive down the ground, hit sixes down the ground, not like Virat Kohli or Pujara or someone who likes to flick the balls a lot. So that thicker handle is good for people who have thicker hands and who likes to hit down the ground. Thinner handles are good for people who likes to use their wrist a lot when they play their shots. So the next aspect is how good the ping of the bat is. It's very hard to test the ping of the bat before you buy it because a lot of people don't allow the customers to ping the bat and feel, and a lot of players, when they buy bats online, they just go with the brand because they must have played someone else. They must have seen someone else play with the bat really well, and then they would trust the bat to be good for them too. But every bat is different, like how every brand is different. So it's important to request some ping videos from your retailers so that you can make an informed decision. So sometimes you can use a leather ball to see how the ping is, but one of the common tests which you can do is take a bat and then listen to the sound. That's the most important factor. The bat will rebound in your hand pretty well in a rhythmic fashion, and the sound should not feel shallow. The wood should not feel shallow. Those are two important factors. Now, this is a used bat. It's not pretty well. It's not the bat which I use. Let's take a new bat and see the difference in sound and the difference in response when you ping the bat. Okay, taking the SG bat again, so you can have the bat like this. Number one, the bat doesn't respond as much as it did with the other bat. Number two is, if you wear headphones and listen to this video, you would have seen the shallow sound. It is a bit more shallower than that bat. So that bat gave the sound of a wood which is very well settled. This bat is fresh wood, so it gave that sound of the shallowness. So it's very important to understand these minute differences so that you can pick the right bat. And even when you pick the right bat, it's always important to keep knocking your bat, keep oiling it every now and then, so that the quality of the bat doesn't go down and the response of the bat is pretty good. Okay, so we have spoken about a lot of different factors. I'll just summarize what we spoke about and what my recommendation would be. So if you are a person who's a front foot player who likes to drive the ball a lot, put the ball in the gaps, maneuver the ball a lot, you should be looking for a low mid sweet spot bat which is lightweight and which should also have pretty good balance. The balance is very important because you need the bat to do what you say. So if you are a front foot player who plays a lot of lofted shots, then you would probably need a low mid sweet spot, whereas when you drive the ball a lot, you would need a low sweet spot. So a low mid sweet spot is good for the lofted players, and it's very important to have a medium weight because you need meat to make sure your lofted shots actually travel the distance. So for lofted shot players, front foot, you would probably be looking at a medium weight bat with thick edges and thick meat. Some of the classic examples could be CAs and any custom grain bats or any bat which match these requirements. And then let's talk about the backfoot players. So for backfoot players, you would need any weight based on whatever you're comfortable with, but it's very important to have a middle sweet spot, because when you play on backfoot, more often than not, you are looking at the ball to be bouncing at you with the trajectory which is rising. So when you bring the bat down, it's important to understand that more often than not the ball will meet the middle of the bat. So when you play a square cut, when you play a pull, you always tend to meet the ball at the middle of the bat, middle portion of the bat. And when I say middle, I'm referring to the middle sweet spot. So for backfoot players, middle sweet spot, pretty thick meat, and any weight based on your preference. Now let's talk about hitters. for hitters whose primary intent is to score boundaries, if you are a guy who has a high back lift, like Yuvraj Singh, for example, he has a high back lift. So if you're a guy who has a high back lift, a lighter bat is always good. Because what happens is when you have a high back lift, the lighter bats will help you dig out Yorkers pretty quickly and play unconventional shots, like cow corner sixes, helicopter shots, and all those kind of shots. And if you are a hitter who doesn't have a huge back lift, case in point, MS Dhoni, he doesn't have a huge back lift, so he waits for the ball and then in one motion tries to hit the ball. So if you're that kind of a player, then you should go for a medium to heavy bat with thick meat, because what happens is when you make contact, you are not bringing in the full swing. You are just relying on the contact and just a part of your swing to take the ball to the distance. So you need a thick meat and a heavy weight bat so that the bat really goes down hard on the ball and the ball clears the boundary. So these are the factors which I could think of, and if you can think of any other factors which needs to be considered, please do leave a comment, and I'll be more than happy to learn from you guys and keep improving. I mean, we all should improve based on how we play, and if there's anything else you guys want to discuss, just feel free to leave a comment. I will be more than happy to respond. Once again, thanks for watching, guys. We hope you liked the video. Hopefully we'll be back with some more videos. Thank you.